You're watching The Truth, and today I wanted to talk about college football realignment. Now, this has been a story for the past 3 weeks or so, and, well, to be honest with you, I think it's destroying college football, and it's going to destroy college football. Now, I'm a purist when it comes to college football. I believe conferences should be regional. I'm tired of these, mega conferences that span multiple time zones. You know, being a TCU graduate, we had the Southwest Conference, and it was an all-Texas conference outside of Arkansas. And I think that's how it should be. It should be regional. Regional rivalries are what make college football great. And all of these mega conferences are kind of going away from that. Now, the reason I think it's going to destroy college football is because the end game. A lot of people have the end game wrong. A lot of people think that the end game for these mega conferences is 4 16-team conferences, which total 64 teams. Everyone thinks that's the end game. That is not the end game. The end game is a super league that breaks off from the NCAA that consists of anywhere between 24 and 32 teams that disbands themselves from the NCAA and starts their own collegiate sports association that has no rules pretty much. Collective bargaining, paying players, no academic requirements, you name it. It will be wide open minor league football is pretty much what it will be. 24 to 32 teams of the biggest name brands out there all in one league nationwide that are out from under the thumb of the NCAA. That is the end game. And I know a lot of people do mention that, but a lot of people think the end game is the 4-team or the 4-conference, 64 teams overall, 16 teams per league. That is not the end game. Here's why I'm not a big fan of the Super League of the 24 to 32 teams that breaks off at all. It's because it's going to be stupid. It's just going to be a minor league. The players aren't going to have any attachment to the schools at all. Basically, it's not going to be collegiate sports anymore. It's going to be minor league sports sponsored by the colleges. So it's not going to be the University of Alabama football team. It's going to be the football team sponsored by the University of Alabama. Because there's going to be no academic requirements. There's going to be collective bargaining and paying of players and all that. There's going to be that. So these kids aren't going to have to go to school or anything because that's what the whole idea of breaking off from the NCAA is going to entail. It's going to allow these schools to say, you know what, forget academic requirements. Just come here to play football. That's it. That's the number one reason it's going to ruin college football. Another reason is that, like I said, it's going to be stupid. It's going to be stupid. These 24 to 32 teams are probably only going to play each other. So if you don't make the cut, then you might be lucky enough to play 1 or 2 games a year against the Super League. It'll be the equivalent of Division I teams today playing FCS schools as body bag games in non-conference play. It's going to be the equivalent. So if you're like TCU, you might be able to play Texas or Oklahoma if you're lucky, and it's always going to be away. You're never going to get them at home or a home and home. It's always going to be a road game, and it's always going to be a body bag game at the beginning of the year. This new Super League might allow one of those games per year, where you get to play a school outside of the Super League and non-conference. So schools like TCU, other schools that don't make the cut, they're going to be relegated to basically the new Super League is going to be the current FBS, and then the rest of the leftovers are going to be the current FCS. So there's going to be a lot of relegation and demotion. It's going to be stupid. It's not going to be as successful as these people think it's going to be. Everyone thinks, you take 24 to 32 of the biggest schools out there and put them all in the same league and only have them play each other. That'll be wildly successful. No, it won't. Because a lot of people will see the greed and elitism involved in that and refuse to watch. Everyone's like, well, they watch now. Well, yeah, because I watch now because I still feel like my school, TCU, is somewhat connected to the bigger schools, right? We're all in the same FBS, 130-team division of the NCAA. We're all in the same division. Even when we were in the Mountain West, I still watched, knowing that we probably didn't have a chance at the BCS title game, although we came close. But I still watched anyway because there is still a connection. There is still a connection to those bigger schools. But if there's a Super League of 32 teams that breaks off from the rest, that connection's not going to be there anymore. So it's like, why? What's the point? It might help in the short run the blue bloods that are able to break off, but it's going to kill everybody else, and eventually the viewership will not be able to sustain the TV contracts and budgets and investments put into these blue blood schools in the Super League, and it's going to collapse under its own weight. I don't think it'll be successful. I don't. More people will refuse to watch such a thing than you think, because it's just going to be an NFL minor league, and people are like, well, why watch the minor league when I can just watch the real thing? It's going to be watered down. It's going to be bland and boring like the NFL is. And I'm not an NFL guy. I don't really like it that much because I think it's too streamlined. There's not enough variety. That's why I like college football more than the NFL, because I feel like there's a lot more things that make it unique. You'll take a lot of that away in a Super League. And this is why I'm going to transition to what everybody is missing when discussing college realignment. And nobody talks about this, and I don't see why. And I even put that in the title of this video, what nobody is talking about, and in the thumbnail. Nobody is talking about, where does college basketball fit into this? Where does college basketball fit? I know what people are going to say. Probably the number one thing people are going to say is, well, the Super League will be for basketball too. I'm like, okay, let's entertain that. Come up with the 32 teams that would make up this new Super League. And let's face it, football's probably going to be the deciding factor. How much football revenue do you bring in? Will Kansas make the cut? Is Duke going to make the cut? Is Indiana going to make the cut? What about basketball-only schools like Gonzaga, or schools that don't emphasize football very much like Villanova? Where do they fit in? See, that's what nobody's talking about. So there's a lot of responses I do get to when I ask, where does basketball fit into this? And people are like, well, the 32 teams will be for basketball as well. Okay, so say Kentucky makes the cut, Kansas doesn't. Fine. So first of all, what do you do about March Madness? March Madness is worth more than the college football playoff. And here's why March Madness is so successful. The 64-team bracket is why it's so successful. So if you have a Super League of 32 teams, like, how many people are you going to invite to the postseason? Well, people will be like, well, we'll do it NBA style. We'll do a 16-team bracket with series and play it out like the NBA. Okay, so you want to drag out a 2-month postseason like they do in the NBA? Oh, well, we'll chop it down to 3-game series instead of 7-game series. Okay, still. Do you think the country is going to be as enamored with a 16-team format of 3-game series as they are with March Madness and the 64-team single elimination bracket? I don't think so. But people will be like, yeah, but it'll be 16 blue bloods. Yeah, but team number 16 is going to be like a 500 team. Yeah, but it'll be 16 of the biggest names in a tournament. It's not going to be as popular as March Madness, no matter how much you think it will be. Because part of what makes March Madness so popular is the first round and the minefield of upset potential games. You're going to take all that away, so a lot of people who watch the tournament for that reason aren't going to tune in. And the single elimination format, yeah, it might not be a great way to crown a champion, but it makes for amazing drama. So you're going to take that away. What are you going to do, a 16-team single elimination bracket? It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to recreate the March Madness excitement, brand, and revenue in the Super League. It's not going to work. And so that brings me back to what I was saying. What do you do about schools like Gonzaga that have great basketball programs? Well, I know people are going to say, well, you'll make it basketball only, or you'll invite teams for basketball only. It'll be 32 teams for football, but for basketball it will be like 64. Okay, let's entertain that. So let's say that they do basketball only schools for the Super League. Right? So you have your Gonzagas, your Villanovas, your Georgetowns, Xavier, Kansases of the world are going to be invited, right? So what do you do if you're a school like Kansas or Duke, who would not make the cut for the 32 super team football league, but would probably make the basketball-only exceptions, right? Would Kansas or Duke or Indiana be willing to entertain that? Would they be okay with being treated as a second-class citizen in football, but accept the invite for basketball? I don't know. If I were Kansas, I'd be like, to hell with you guys. If you guys aren't going to invite us for football, we're not going to play along in basketball. And I think Duke would do the same in Indiana and some of these other basketball schools that wouldn't make the cut. I wouldn't. I wouldn't entertain that. Like if I was Baylor, who no doubt would not make a 32-team football cut, but probably would make the basketball team cut considering they just won the national championship, I'd be like, no, you get all of us or none of us. You either invite us for football or you don't get any of us at all. And so here we go. Yeah, I'm sure schools like Gonzaga that don't have football programs would probably be willing to go along with it, but I would not go along with it if I were a Kansas or Duke. And that's the leverage the small schools have in this situation with realignment. And the leverage they have over the threat of a breakaway to a 32-team Super League is March Madness. That's the leverage. And nobody seems to be talking about that in terms of realignment. It's football only. And I get it. Football's the biggest piece of the pie, and outside of March Madness, college basketball can't really compete with the week in, week out regular season of college football. But still, where does basketball fit into all of this? Because that is the end game, guys. Accept it. I keep telling TCU fans this who somehow, some reason think that we can go to the Pac-12. It's not going to happen. But say it did happen. It would be short-lived because this 24 to 32 team Super League that breaks off from the NCAA is going to happen. It's just a matter of time. The writing is on the wall. So even if TCU did get invited to the Pac-12, it would only be a matter of time before that all blew up and the 32 team Super League happened. And that's what I keep trying to tell the fans of schools like Wake Forest, Oregon State, Boston College, Vanderbilt, and all these other schools that are currently in a power conference that is expanding. Eventually, the knives are going to turn on you guys. So if you're Mississippi State or if you're a Vanderbilt and you think that you're safe right now, you might be safe for now, but as the pie continues to shrink, and that's what's going to happen, there will be no expansion but shrinkage. As the pie continues to shrink, eventually the knives are going to turn inwards towards the schools like Mississippi State and Vanderbilt and Oregon State and Washington State and Wake Forest. Eventually the knives will be pointed towards them. They might be safe now. They might be in a power conference now. They might not be like the Big 12 schools like TCU right now and be on the outside looking for a home. But trust me, it's not going to be your home for much longer. Eventually, the Clemsons and the Florida States of the world are going to start to complain about the Wake Forest of the world for not pulling their own weight. And then Wake Forest will find themselves on the outside. Like I said, contraction is the name of the game here, not expansion. And the end game is a 32-team Super League that I think is going to destroy college football. It's going to not be as successful as people think it will be. And the only people who seem to support it are the fans of the teams that would be in this league themselves. Everybody else would hate it and not watch it. You know, you saw Jay Billis shilling for the concept of a Super League that breaks off from the NCAA. I saw him shilling for it. Does he think Duke would make that 32-team cut? They would not. So if Duke were going to be involved in the Super League, they better hope there's basketball-only invites and that Duke would be willing to basically be treated like a second-class citizen in terms of football and be okay with taking a basketball-only invite. But nobody seems to think this through long-term. That's the problem. I am vehemently opposed to this 32-team Super League, but I think it's inevitable. The writing's on the wall. It's going to happen. So I say, bring it on. Let's get it over with. Go ahead. Do what you can do to get this ball rolling for this 32-team Super League. I want it to come on as soon as possible because the quicker it comes on, the quicker it's all going to blow up. People will see it for the failure that it is. People will realize that it's a failed experiment, and then we can go back to college sports alignments that actually make sense, okay? So let's get this out of the way. Allow it to collapse under its own weight, and then we can maybe see college football that makes sense sometime in my lifetime. But until then, I am rooting for it all to blow up. I really am. If we're going to speed off the cliff, I'd rather speed off the cliff at 200 miles an hour than 50 miles an hour. Bring it on, Blue Bloods. Go ahead and form your Super League. Anyway, that wraps it up for The Truth. Stay tuned right here to The Truth with William Lease for the truth about things regarding sports, sports betting, and life in general.